Hello there. Today we're doing a little reading vlog of all of the books that I want to read or have to read but haven't gotten to yet. I'm calling this my unrealistic reading vlog because I don't want you to watch this and feel guilty for not reading as much as I do. This is my full-time job right now, and even if you had all the time and privilege that I have to read, it still never feels like enough. That's not an idea that you can get out of your head. It's also unrealistic in the sense that I'm going to talk about all of the foods that we eat, and my partner and I are lucky enough to have, again, the time and privilege to cook every night, and we enjoy cooking with each other. So when I get on here and I show you all of the gorgeous things that we eat, it feels like I'm being an asshole. Like, look at me and look at all of the nice things that I can make. But this is not feasible for most people. So I started this on Monday. I woke up at 6:45, which is pretty early for me. I am a morning person through and through, but my body also requires 9 hours of sleep to function. So it's an ongoing struggle in my life. This morning, I put some muffins in the oven. I got ready, I showered, and then I sat on the couch to read while the muffins baked. Here I was reading The Simple Art of Killing a Woman, which is our book club pick for June. Unfortunately, I think that more people DNF'd this book this month than actually finished it. It is dramatically bad. The premise of this book is that a woman is escaping her abuser and she goes on assignment to a small border town in Brazil that's dealing with the femicide epidemic. Here, she encounters rampant racism, violence against women, and misogyny, and she's also grappling with her own past family history of violence against women. That sounds really interesting. Well, the synopsis is fucking wall-to-wall lies. I mean, technically that is what happens in the book, but it is trying to sell itself as some feminist piece of literature, and it is nothing of the sort. It's not even Feminism 101. It is the most lacking in nuance, uncritical, thoughtless piece on gendered violence any of us have ever read, and I'm so devastated that I picked this for the book club. We don't have like the greatest history of book choices in the last 7 months, but that's more so that we've read books that people didn't enjoy or weren't to people's tastes. But we have not ever read anything as objectively dog shit as this book is. And then on top of this shit show of a book that has literally put a curse on the book club, what happens next? But August's book is pulled from publication, so no one can get it now. So that's what I did next year. I sat at my computer and I wrote up some summaries of a bunch of books that we were going to vote on for the new August pick, because nobody can get Shy Girl by Mia Ballard. What the hell? We are still going to read it, just later in the year when it's republished traditionally. What? Fuck. After I ate and I put up a poll in the Discord, I went outside to read more of this book. I just wanted to get it over and done with. And you might be looking at this clip and you might be thinking, hey guy, maybe don't post the area directly outside of your house onto the internet for everyone to see. But by the time this video is up, I will have moved out of this house, which is crazy to say considering the fact that I am sitting here on Wednesday. We are moving on Sunday and we have not packed anything. We have not done anything. I suffered through this book for about an hour and then my partner got up. Sorry, sweetheart, not to call you out here. We chatted for a little bit and then I went back outside determined to finish this fucking book. I was fighting the reading slump demon hard here because the book that I read before this book was the goddamn Wordle romance. Wordle romance and then this recipe for disaster. I am truly like making this video so that I can force myself out of an inevitable reading slump from these two books. And also to make myself read this book, because of course I want to read it. It's the book club book and I want to talk about it with everyone. But after seeing what everyone was saying about it in the Discord, I was afraid of what this book was going to be. And I was right to be. This was terrible. And I did manage to slog through it. So let's talk a little bit about The Simple Art of Killing a Woman and why you should not read it. If you want to see a whole bunch of way more interesting, smart, and funny people's thoughts on this, you're going to have to join the book club. I'm sorry. I've already told you the basic premise of this, but we'll sum it up just a little bit better. This story follows an unnamed lawyer who is sent to a border town in Brazil to oversee a whole bunch of cases of men who have killed women for her boss, who's writing a book of statistics. She has been sent far away from where she actually lives in Brazil because she's requested it to escape her ex-boyfriend, Amir. Right before she was chosen for this assignment, Amir slapped her in the face at a party. It was the first time he had ever been violent towards her, and she knew that it was the first step and that staying around him would put herself in danger. Part of the reason that she knows this, better than the women who end up being killed, as it's later heavily implied, is because of her job and all of the violence against women that she has been exposed to with that. But the other reason that she knows this is because of her own familial history, which causes her to protect herself more than other victims. Ugh. That history is that her mother was murdered by her father while she was in the house when she was young, and she doesn't really remember any of it. So she arrives in this town and she watches over this case of a young indigenous woman who was murdered by 3 young men in the town. These men are part of like the affluent families in the town, so of course, despite their very obvious involvement, they are acquitted. And a large part of this acquittal is something that the narrator is witness to. She leaves her hotel room at one point to go get some water. In the middle of the night, it's like 4 a.m, and she stumbles across the defense lawyer with 2 of the jurors all having drinks together. This is clear-cut misconduct and corruption. They don't see her, and they don't see her take a photo of them, but on her way back to her room, she runs into the hotel manager, who is immediately suspicious of her, but hiding it. He's obviously in on it in some sense. The narrator has befriended the prosecution's lawyer, Carla, and she takes this corruption evidence to Carla, who tells her to take it to a newspaper. Specifically to a woman, Rita, who's the editor-in-chief at a newspaper who I think fairly covers the cases of murdered women in the area. But the publishing of this information doesn't really go how they want it to. Instead, there's outcry about the trial already having happened, about leaving these young men alone. They have their whole lives ahead of them, and how dare the newspaper try to smear their image like this. And then Rita is found murdered, and the night before her body is found at the bottom of the stairs, clearly staged as an accident, she had called Carla and said, "We need to meet up. I have some really important evidence to show you." Carla and the narrator are really aware of the danger that they're in with their proximity to this case that's going to be swept under the rug no matter what. But the narrator is also in danger for other reasons, namely this ex-boyfriend who has been harassing her nonstop. She never told anyone about the slap being the reason that she left, or even the slap happening at all, and so her grandmother, who liked this boyfriend, told him where she was staying, and he shows up at her front door. This might be the one point of the book that actually has some tension or a little wisp of an emotional impact, as she sees him, realizes the danger she's in, and goes through in her mind the act of him killing her, what happens to her body afterwards, the trial, and all this, and then she says, "I'm letting my imagination run wild." So she takes him to a public place, and she breaks it off with him. And there's this idea here that I mentioned before, this implication that she is able to protect herself from being abused by virtue of her own intelligence or awareness, as if being aware is enough to stop something like this from happening to you. As if, by extension, the women that this book brutally details the murders of could have protected themselves had they been as smart as she is. It is never outright saying this, but it is the logical line of reasoning to go to from what it is outright saying. I'm not doing a full summary of this book because it's a whole bunch of fucking nothing, and because I didn't take detailed notes on the plot points, since this is for the book club. And, I mean, technically, you'd think everyone would read it. Not this time. A lot of people save themselves, and I respect that fucking choice. So we're just kind of going off of my memory of what happens next, and I believe the next significant thing is that the 3 men who killed this young indigenous woman are murdered. They are found all dead by gunshot. Her and Carla visit the indigenous community where this young woman had lived, and while there, they meet another young woman around the age of like 15 or 16, and she's clearly pregnant, and she's also covered in bruises. The narrator pulls her aside, and this woman won't tell her who it was that hurt her. So she goes back to this girl's boyfriend, pulls him aside, and starts going off at him, telling him that if he touches her again, she'll be back with the police. Once her and Carla are gone, Carla tells her that this was totally inappropriate, that she can't just come into this community that she knows nothing about, that has their own systems of dealing with things, and interfere like this. And while in this little speech that Carla is giving the narrator, she is doing a thing that the book does throughout the whole entire thing, which is characterizing indigenous men as violent abusers and indigenous women as innocent, helpless victims. She does have somewhat of a reasonable point here. And I was relieved to see that someone was calling out the white saviorism of the narrator. Until later on, when they go back to this community, and she sees this young woman who no longer has any bruises on her. So it worked. So what she said fucking worked. Even after being told that she's wrong, this book cannot handle letting its narrator be wrong. It cannot handle a world in which she doesn't know more than every other woman about how to stop or escape abuse. And still, there is that implicit idea that if other women knew how to protect themselves in the way that she does, men would stop killing women. Who cares what happens? Carla ends up murdered. The narrator ends up with malaria, which she decides to stop treating through modern medicine because she knows that the mystical indigenous women with their magical primitive medicine will be able to fix her better than the malaria pills that she's taking. It's fucking insane. It is so fucking racist. It turns out that Carla's ex-boyfriend Paolo, who seemed like a good enough guy to the narrator, was the one that killed those 3 men because he thought that they were going to hurt Carla. And then when he went to try to win Carla back, he showed her the gun and told her that he had killed them, and she got hysterical, and so he shot her to shut her up. We learned that the evidence that Rita had wanted to show Carla was a video taken on this young indigenous woman's phone of these 3 men dropping off a block of cocaine and then seeing her taking the video and running after her. And it was taken on the day of her death, which solidifies their involvement in this case, and also kind of takes away from the thesis of this book, which is that men kill women because they enjoy killing women. The book ends with the narrator truly just going back to her life in the big city, dancing with her friends in a club. It is so exploitative, and I know that you're feeling that already just from what I've told you, but it gets worse, because throughout this whole book, there are chapters that for some reason are printed in a slightly smaller font that detail her ayahuasca trips, in which a band of hallucinated indigenous women help her work through the trauma of her mother's murder. And they also give her closure for this indigenous woman's death through their murderous flying vaginas. I'm not joking. I also want to say here that I keep calling her the indigenous girl. She does have a name in this book, thank God, but the author has made up this name as far as I can tell. She has made up an entire group of indigenous people based purely off of stereotypes and no research, so I don't have any way of learning how to pronounce this name because it's her own creation. It is so racist and so offensive. For her to go to this town, have her white savior moment, meddle with shit that she knows nothing about, make no effort to understand the context of what is happening here, take advantage of the practices and medicines of the indigenous people in this area, then reach a state where she is personally in a better place because of her exploitation of these rituals and practices, which, by the way, she makes no effort to understand, and then she just leaves and she goes to dance with her friends in a club to Paul McCartney, mind you. Holy shit. Like, holy shit. This is extra crazy to me because this was translated into English by a woman who, from what I saw, writes nonfiction books about feminism. How did nobody see what was happening in this book? At no point during its original or translated publication did anyone read this critically. Not only is there very little interesting plot in this book, it's mostly just a whole bunch of musings about how men are biologically evil and women are biologically innocent and pure with no nuance and no understanding of intersectionality. This also has 1,000 undifferentiatable characters who have no development and no personality. It is not trying to tell a story. It is not trying to create interesting or complex characters. All this book is trying to do is deliver a message to you. A message about violence against women, but a message that is devoid of context, of nuance, of anything interesting or useful to contribute to the conversation. Not only are there these insufferable ayahuasca chapters that I can't even describe to you how difficult they are to read cutting up this book, there are also chapters that for some reason are formatted in this fucking ridiculous like Instagram poetry kind of way that go into extreme, gratuitous, explicit violence detailing the deaths of women who have been killed by their partners. Now, I was going over my annotations while I was taking notes on this book, and I wrote, God, I hope these aren't real women because of the disgusting amount of graphic violence that it details in this. And I looked it up, and they are. This is true crime fucking brain rot. In what world is that okay? How did we get here? It's really trying to be taboo or provocative, but it's not saying anything by detailing the violence like this. Instead, it is just needlessly, uselessly cruel. It's insensitive and callous. And that isn't just in these chapters. That leaks into the entirety of the book. Most of this book is just her talking about men and women in a very, very graphic way. A graphic way that is not doing anything. And then to make it all worse, the writing fucking sucks. Though maybe that is better, because can you imagine with this ideology behind it, if this was like the most beautifully written book of all time? Like, what would you do with yourself? How do you square those things? Every chapter ended in a stupid fucking line, like she's trying to have this mic drop moment, like this one. But the statistics show that it happens a lot, and lots of men don't stop at a slap. They'd actually rather kill you. Or here, he asked, "You police?" "Worse," I replied. "I'm from the League of Women of the Greenstones, and you've been warned." She's a white woman, by the way, referencing her ayahuasca trips. The translation isn't all that great. The dialogue feels very unnatural. Like, this truly is a book with negative value. And I'm so sorry to everyone in the book club that I picked it. It left us all with a terrible taste in our mouths. But from the synopsis, it seems like it really could be good. So I was very glad to be done with it. I want to say I'm free, but unfortunately with a book club book, I don't really get to be free of it until I post the final discussion video at the beginning of next month, which most of the time I love. I love like being in the headspace of like thinking about a book so much. Like last month with Fever Dream, I had such a great time making that video and thinking about that book. This time I just have like no recourse against the next 2 weeks of my life where I'm not going to be able to forget about this piece of shit. After jumping in the Discord and complaining about it for a minute, at least we were all together in our misery and disappointment about this book. The one good thing about reading a bad book, if you're doing it in a book club, you can bond over it a little bit. I needed to like let my thoughts marinate a little bit more before I started a new book, so I did a little bit of crafting. If you are Kyle, Caden, or Maggie, don't look at this part, okay? Skip this part. I'm going to put up a little number. Stop watching. So one of the book club members, Julie, designed us a book club sticker, like literally like Oprah, and it is so beautiful and so perfect. That is my frog tattoo on my arm on the book club sticker. What the hell? So I printed them out. Of course I printed them out. The background is a little bit darker in print than it was in Julie's design, so this is not quite the final iteration, but I have a sample pack of these stickers, and people in the book club want the fucking stickers. The amount of interest in these stickers was wild. It was really truly my first moment, and this is maybe a little bit cringe, of like, how did my life get to this point? Like, what the hell is happening? Just thinking about people out there reading books that I have chosen for a book club. Not this one. This one makes me feel like shit. I'm sorry to think about the fact that I made people read this book. But just the fact that there are people who are like engaging with my book club is insanity. And then to think that those people want to put a little sticker on their book that says they read it for my book. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's crazy. But I refuse to become a sticker business. I just know that if I had an obligation to send these to people, it wouldn't be fun anymore. I know I would be miserable. I mean, I hate going to the post office, and if I had to go to the post office, ugh, terrible. I'm simply too lazy for that. And I want it to be fun. And I'm lucky enough to just get to choose only to do things that I want to do, really. Other than read this goddamn book. But people want to have stickers, and I want people to have stickers. So we are doing a monthly sticker draw, baby. If you join the book club, you have honestly a pretty high chance of one day getting a Frankie Shelf book club sticker. What the fuck? This is great for me because I get to do some arts and crafts if I'm not quite in the mood to read, and then I still get to feel like I'm being productive. And so I've been making envelopes, and I love making envelopes, and I don't care if you think me using my recycling is maybe a little bit trashy. I think the craft paper is cute. I've also been making bookmarks because it's a book club. I feel like I should put some bookmarks in here. And I've been doing little Snoopies because all the freaks in my book club, they all love Snoopy. I'm loving the bookmarks because I felt like there was an obligation for me to put a note along with the stickers, and that was too much pressure. Like, I did not know if I was meant to be earnest or funny. Is it like an Etsy thank you note kind of thing? That feels really impersonal. I didn't know how to be like personal. So instead I'm doing a bookmark, and that has taken the weight of feeling like I need to put a note in off of my shoulders. You're getting a bookmark and stickers. And let me tell you, I might not always do the bookmarks. So if you're in the book club, know that maybe when I send you your sticker, I won't feel like doing the bookmark. That's the thing about doing it for free, is that I just get to do whatever is fun for me in the moment. After my little craft break, I made a hummus sandwich for lunch. Carrots, peppers, tomato, cucumber, all on homemade sourdough. Delightful. And then I went outside and I started reading Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata. When I first started this book, I realized I had no idea what it was about, and I think I did that on purpose. I think I truly never once read the summary for this book because I love going into a book blind, and it's really hard to do that unless you know that the author is going to write something that you're going to enjoy well enough, which is something that I do know about Sayaka Murata, who I have read every work that has been translated into English. So Vanishing World follows Amane, a woman living in a version of Japanese society where nobody has sex anymore and babies are only made really through artificial insemination. Sex with husband and wife has become so taboo in this world that it is considered incest, because husbands and wives are family and their roles together are as caregiver of their children or as like life partners, but more than anything, their family. So if they have sex, that's incest. It is so strange. It's really, really common in this society and very much accepted that people will have affair partners. This is not looked down upon because this is a totally different kind of relationship, and sex between these two people is not considered incest because they're not family. However, it still is incredibly uncommon. Often people are just masturbating. It's also very common here for people to have these affairs with fictional characters. Part 1 follows Amane as a child as she figures out her own sexuality and sexual urges and romantic desires and how that fits into the values of the society that she lives in. And this is a little bit different for her because her parents had not conformed to the new normal societal values and they had conceived her through intercourse. Her mom had been trying to brainwash her since birth into believing what she believes while the world is trying to brainwash her into believing something else. So when she has a sex ed class in elementary school and her teacher says, if you have any more questions, let me know, she asks her about having intercourse and says, this is how my parents made me. And her teacher says that can't be true. And if it is, that is very, very old fashioned. And she's a little bit disgusted by this. And this news gets out to everyone in her school, and she's outcast for being conceived out of incest. From a young age, she wants to understand herself and her desires and how they fit into this society, and to see if being born out of taboo and her mom being so nonconformist has rubbed off on her. So in elementary school, she has sex with one of her close friends. This is another children having sex scene. You gotta kind of expect it in a Sayaka Murata book at this point. She wants to know if having sex with him would awaken the desire in her to marry him and have his children, following in her mother's footsteps. She has a crush on this friend, at this point only ever having had crushes on fictional characters, and so she really wants to know if her romantic feelings and platonic feelings of wanting to raise a child with someone are linked like her mother's or separate like everyone else. She's relieved to find that she doesn't want to marry this kid or have children, but she does discover that sex is uniquely a very important act to her and something that she wants to do in all of her relationships for the rest of her life. Outside of her marriages, of course. Her first marriage is to a man that she meets at a matchmaking party. This is a really common way to find your life partner. They are planning on having children together, of course, through artificial insemination. People in this society don't necessarily partner up because they want to co-parent specifically. They also partner up to like share expenses or to have someone to live with. They are maintaining the family structure even though it has been fundamentally altered. When her first husband comes onto her without her consent, she of course leaves him. The issue for her here is not that he has assaulted her. It is that it is disgusting and taboo for him to commit this act of incest. She meets her second husband at a matchmaking party, and she knows that he's the one when she tells him this story of her first husband, and he runs to the bathroom and vomits, even though it's her story, and then he's apologizing to her for vomiting. This book does an incredible thing with vomiting. It is so silly and ridiculous. Everybody is always puking about everything. It's meant to be really over-the-top satire, and I think this is a really funny way to do it. Not with this assault case specifically, but it will often be like, when I think about husbands and wives having sex with each other, vomit rises in my throat. It's just so silly, and it's really like, look at how silly these people are about something that we think is so normal. It is forcing you to question unquestioned systems, which is like the draw of Murata's work for me. After her and her second husband Saku partner up, we then begin part 2, which in hindsight, nothing much really happens in. I mean, it's kind of just them living their lives that seem very, very abnormal to us and thinking about how abnormal our lives are to them. But it somehow isn't boring. I think I might have just been relieved to be reading something that wasn't the simple art of killing a woman. Amane meets and falls in love with a man in their building who tells her that he will have sex with her, though he doesn't understand it. They're in a honeymoon phase at this point, and he'll kind of like do anything to please her. After a while of dating, though, he breaks it off with her because he can't keep having sex. He just doesn't get it, and it feels wrong to him. It's like the concept of it is too weird and disgusting. But this is sad for both of them because they do love each other. He just can't meet her needs. And so he tells her, for one last day, I'll do whatever it is that you want. And she says, I want to drink your sperm. And he says, okay. And so they go and so they go into an alley and he comes into a water bottle and she drinks it. It's sayaka murata. Saku and his girlfriend have been on and off forever. And finally, it's like a hard stop to their relationship. And this is tearing him apart. And so him and Amane decide to move to a drumroll please experiment city. I have to believe that this is meant to be fucking stupid and ridiculous the same way the vomiting is, but it can be a little bit harder to believe that everyone is in on it and that this is very deliberate when you're reading a work that is translated, and that is very obviously translated because it's translated from Japanese, which you can never have a seamless translation of. Experiment City is the city that Amane grew up in, which has been transformed into, you guessed it, an experiment. Here, they fit men with artificial wombs so that everyone has the chance to be inseminated. And on the 24th of December, a whole bunch of people in the city who have been drawn through a random lottery draw are inseminated to have children. There is no family structure here. Instead, all of the adults are mothers and all of the children belong to everyone. And Saku's heartbreak has made him feel disillusioned by the concept of family and wanting to move into a society where romantic love no longer exists to break his heart. And Amane will follow him wherever she goes because he is her family and she feels an obligation to him. And so in part 3, the two of them move to Experiment City. Here, Amane is at first made quite uncomfortable by the new values and norms of this society, but over time she slowly gets more used to it. She's never quite as assimilated as Saku is, who is immediately happy here. In their first year here, they're both selected for artificial insemination, and Amane finds out that childhood friend who she lost her virginity to is working here as a fertility doctor. So she gets him to pull some strings and makes sure that they are inseminated with each other's sperm and egg. She still wants to have a baby with Saku, as was always their goal, even though they have agreed to live in this society where babies are not specifically biologically tied to you. Amane miscarries, but Saku makes it all the way to the 3rd trimester and becomes the first male to successfully carry an implanted embryo to term. Over his pregnancy, the two of them had become less and less close, with Amane learning to be really comfortable in her solitude because in this society, solitude is not equal to loneliness. She does still want their baby once it's born, though her and Saku have a really distant relationship at this point, and he has actually moved out of his apartment beside her because he's famous for being the first male to carry a baby to term. But Amane never gets the chance to meet this baby because it's quickly whisked away with all of the other children of the city. Her mother comes to visit her on a day pass and is incredibly judgmental and still very much stuck in our world, which is like 2 iterations of the family back from where Amane is. Amane goes off about how we're all brainwashed and every living creature is a monster, and her mom gets up to leave but can't because she has been drugged with sleeping pills. I am not 100% certain that I totally understand Amane's motivations here, but this is like the last 10 pages of the book. The final thing that happens is definitely controversial. She sees one of the children of the society who calls her mother, as all children call all adults, and she accidentally spills her coffee onto him. So she takes him up to her apartment and quickly gets his clothes off so that he's not further burned by the coffee. When she sees his penis, she is shocked, but quickly realizes that he has no shame about it, that he doesn't understand the significance that this part of his body used to carry. It has no meaning to him. If you've read her other works, you know that Murata likes to get really, really fucked up at the end of a book, and this might take the cake. Out of more curiosity than desire or pleasure, she assaults this boy. And this is awful. It is an awful scene to read, and at first it felt really unnecessary and really icky. It's provocative, and maybe it's going way too far, but it is asking you a question. What does this mean in this world? What does this crime that we consider the most heinous act that a person can commit mean in a world where sex is all but forgotten, where it's not used for desire or procreation? Does that change anything? It doesn't answer these questions, of course, but this scene isn't without purpose, though one can definitely make the argument that this is not the only way that these questions could have been asked. While they're in bed, there's banging on the wall beside them coming from Saku's old apartment, where Amane is clearly holding her mother hostage. Still not sure I get this part. Definitely something about punishment for the way her mother has raised her and the ideas she's tried to instill in her, like for setting her up to be an outsider from the start. But I really kind of wish with this book that I got to see a more well-developed spiraling of Amane's character. I wanted to follow along with her unraveling, and I also really wanted to understand her motivations better throughout this book. And I might have missed out on things because maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. I can definitely see that. But I wanted to know why she did what she did at many points in the book, and I felt very distant from those motivations, despite the fact that a lot of this book is just kind of like her thinking about things and like explaining her thoughts and feelings. This is not my favorite of Murata's works. I thought that it was thematically a little bit underdeveloped, but I found it very readable the whole time. And while it was one note and repetitive, I was happy to keep hearing that one note as I read it. And maybe that is more to do with the two books that I read before this one. I was just happy that those weren't the notes that I was hearing. This critiques a lot of the same stuff that I have learned to expect from a work by Sayaka Murata, generally like social norms, more specifically sex and sexuality and the family structure and women's place within it. Compared to her other works, I think this is more about the family and a little bit less about the expectations of women in society, though that is still a major theme in the book. I'm honestly kind of happy that she's always doing the same thing because it works for her and it's what I'm looking for when I pick up a Sayaka Murata book, which is flipping these unquestioned norms that we take for granted as just like inherent truths onto their head and making you look at them in a totally new light from a totally different perspective. She turns things around and she forces you to think about the world that you live in by reading about a world that is so totally different from yours. Did I think that she achieved this with the greatest skill that I've seen from her? I did not. Like I said, it was repetitive, but there wasn't really the depth that you would expect to blossom out of that repetition. There's also this thing that is just impossible to look past in the dialogue in the beginning of this book, and because it's in the beginning, it makes me think that it's not deliberate, and that is exposition dialogue, where characters are talking to each other and telling each other things that the other one obviously knows so that the reader is in the know as well. It's sort of akin to a cheesy movie where the first time you see two characters interact, someone will say something like, "Hey, sister," as if that's the only way to give the audience the information that these are siblings. Like at one point, one of her friends says, "After all, there's no more Chiba now, just Experiment City. Neither of us lives there now, nor do our parents, so I guess we don't have a hometown anymore." Of course, the narrator already knows all of this information. This is obviously extremely satirical, but with some points, it can be hard to really buy into the idea that everyone is in on all of the satire, partly because it's translated. I think actually hugely because it's translated. I mean, that's a whole second team working on the book that you have to believe is also seeing things the same way that you're seeing them. Like with Experiment City as well, I could be missing a huge amount of context with that. Maybe that name makes so much more sense in Japanese, right? But all that said, I did enjoy this book. I think that it was funny with a deadpan sense of humor. I think it was enjoyable to read, even though it didn't have all that much plot. It was a solid piece of work, and one of Ginny Tapley Takamori, I think is her name's, better translations of Murata. It can be iffy. It's not like they're getting better with time. she just varies wildly in the quality of her translation. I like this, but I would not recommend starting here if you have not read any of her works. I would go Convenience Store Woman, Earthlings, Life Ceremony, and then this one. That's not to say that's the order of my favorites. Earthlings is my favorite, and I would put this above Life Ceremony. I just think that's the order you should read her works in. Anyway, I will read any release from her, and I have just realized that I got way fucking ahead of myself giving you that entire review because I did not finish this book until the next day. I read 30 pages in that sitting. After those 30 pages, I biked down to the mall to run some errands. I am so excited to move and leave this goddamn mall behind. I hate this place. It's the only place within a reasonable distance of our house, and it's just like this fortress. I want little stores on a street, which is what I'm gonna get at our new place. Also, there's construction going on. I don't know what to do about it, so I have to get off my bike for a whole bunch of the fucking ride. Anyway, I made it down there. I went on the beautiful trails that I am kind of going to miss a little bit, and I mailed off those 3 envelopes with the stickers in them. Then I brought back a whole bunch of overdue library books, a lot of which I had not read, and I felt like the alarms were going to start blaring. I don't care about letting my books get overdue. There's no fines in my library. You can't stop me from that. Bringing them back without reading them feels against the law. I should be taken aback and shot. But I was really brave about it. And then I went inside and I picked up a book, Disappoint Me, which I started reading in the pharmacy. Hard for me to read without headphones on when people are talking. I'm just like too nosy. I can't have auditory input and also read at the same time. So I didn't really get through much, but I think I'm really going to like that book. Then I went back to the mall looking for a little treat for my partner, who, as you will soon learn, did not deserve it. We've been really liking this local soda company's sodas recently. Oh my God, Spinnaker sodas. I can't typically drink a pop or a soda or whatever you want to call it because I physically can't. I don't know how to burp. I'm admitting this to you in a moment of vulnerability. I can't burp. So when I drink something fizzy, I get filled up with all that air and then it's so uncomfortable and like I can't get rid of it. This is not an ad, but these Spinnaker's sodas are just like the perfect amount of fizzy. It's like a light fizzy, but it's also like this beautiful like fuzzy sharpness. I can't describe it to you, but it's just enough fizz that it feels really wonderful in your mouth, but it doesn't fill you up with air, and the flavors are so good. That is the best cream soda I've ever had. So I went into Whole Foods looking for those. They didn't have the sodas, but they did have the sparkling waters, and I was like, I might as well just get the sparkling waters. I got a blackberry one and an apricot one. They were okay. I mean, they're sparkling water, so in some sense, they were fucking rancid, but sparkling water is slowly growing on me. My family, big bubbly people. You over there, they're like, the only thing we have to drink is coffee, which I don't drink, or bubblies. I'm like, okay, like, sure, that looks like a good flavor. I'll try it. Why aren't we putting sugar in this, y'all? I need the sugar. I will admit, I drank the apricot one. It was kind of good, but I was like, this would be really great if it had sugar in it. So I did put sugar in it, and it was better. So I biked back home, and when I got there, my partner Sammy had somehow bricked the Wi-Fi router. So for the past 2 days, we have not had any Wi-Fi. The router just completely stopped working. It doesn't do anything anymore, and they have not come to fix it yet, and we are moving in like 4 days. So are we even gonna get Wi-Fi up until that point? Maybe not. As you have seen and will continue to see in my life, Wi-Fi, not that significant to me. I haven't really noticed it all. It hasn't really changed anything. Obviously, when I'm trying to upload a video, that's going to be an issue, but we're moving next weekend, so this will probably be late anyway. My partner made a pita dough while I read a little bit more of Vanishing World, and then we made falafel for dinner. Homemade pita, falafels, vegetables, tahini sauce, tzatziki, pickled onions. Delicious. It's one of the best meals that we make. Those pitas, oh my fucking God. Absolutely filled myself up with that, and then I went back out onto the deck to catch the last little bit of light and read more of Vanishing World. My partner brought me a sangria, which is Ribena and water and the cheapest, shittiest white wine money can buy. And you're gonna watch me drinking it, and you're gonna think, whoa, slow down there, buddy. That's a little bit fast, the way you're drinking that wine. I want to tell you that my partner makes it with about 1 tablespoon of white wine to a full glass of Ribena. So it's more like a whisper of wine. That doesn't taste like there's any wine. We did all of our daily games like we always do at 9 p.m. We hung out for a little bit, and then I settled into bed, read a bit more of Vanishing World, and was asleep probably by 11:15. I'm so old. Tuesday, yesterday, I woke up at 7:45. I didn't start doing anything until 8:45. I'm a person who takes my mornings extremely slowly. I get up, I sit in the bathroom for a while, thinking about showering, and then I shower, and then I stand in the kitchen thinking about making breakfast, and then I make breakfast, and then an hour has passed. I sat outside and I read up to part 3 of Vanishing World, and I said that I made breakfast, but actually, I didn't actually do that. I don't know what the fuck took me an hour. Showering and getting dressed. I sat outside and I read to part 3, came back inside. My partner was making chocolate chip banana muffins, and they were delicious. And then I did some working and some note taking for a couple of hours until a little after 11, which is when we left on our bikes to go downtown so I could get a haircut. You get to see my favorite stretch of biking in the whole city, which is this part of the Galloping Goose, which if you don't live in Victoria, you wouldn't know. Everybody just calls the Goose. That's our bike system, our bike trail. This stretch is like this beautiful dappled sunlight on the trail. You go underneath these car bridges and it's like so gorgeous, and it's cool down there on a hot day. It was like 32 degrees yesterday. Oh my God, it's the loveliest thing in the world. My partner sat in the coffee shop across the street while I got my haircut, which at this point is a little bit questionable. I think in 2 weeks it will either have grown out enough to feel normal or it will have grown on me. Everyone is always telling me right before I get my haircut that my hair looks so good. It's the only time anyone ever comments on my hair. I just can't handle like the long hair, but I do think this is my last time with the mullet. I don't think the mullet is working for me anymore. I think it had its moment, and the moment is gone. And next time I won't have the long back because I kind of hate it. To be honest, I kind of just let my hairdresser do whatever they want because I don't really want to talk. So it is kind of my fault, but I don't think I necessarily would have picked this. After the haircut, we biked down to a little bike shop to pick up a book that I ordered online. I bought it from my sibling, who is fucking obsessed with Les Mis, because they have to copy everything that I've ever done in my life, because I was obsessed with Les Mis when I was like 4 years younger than them, by the way. They're obsessed with Les Mis and then also the Iliad and the Odyssey, which I've never touched, and thank God for that. So anytime I see a copy of any of those books, I always send a photo to them and I say, do you want this? And they always say, no, I already have that one. Or no, none of those editions are what I want. This time, I went in last week. I sent a photo to them. They said, oh my God, in all caps. I have never seen them use all caps. They answered me like 2.5 hours after I sent them the photo. So I was not in the bookstore anymore. I was far away. But I was like, okay, I'll get it. And my partner also picked up Friday Black because it looked interesting. And because we're pretty sure Jacob Geller recommended it, but maybe not. And then we headed home. And on the way home, we got to see the Johnson Street Bridge lifting up, which was very exciting. And then out from underneath popped the tiniest, dinkiest little boat of all time. It did not feel like they needed to lift it all the way up for that. We did a little detour and we stopped into the Market Garden, which is the bougiest grocery store that has ever existed. Like, it is unbelievable. I can't describe it to you. It's amazing there. Each room is like themed. Like, there's these big murals on the walls and on the ceiling. There's like these like dark rooms with this glossy green tile on the walls. It's like every room is a specific thing. Like, there'll be a candle room, and then like a soap room, and then like a wine room. It's bananas. There's fucking chandeliers. There's a painting on one of the ceilings that looks like we are in a European church. Every fancy item you could possibly imagine, every artisan item you could imagine is in here. It was fucking crazy. We felt so out of place. After that, totally exhausted, we biked home. I filmed a little haul for you guys. We got some pierogies, locally made local-ish Nanaimo made pierogies, which we were planning on having for dinner last night. Then we realized that we didn't have salsa, so we're saving it for tonight. My partner's out picking up salsa right now. We also got some soaps. If you live in the area near me, you need to try this cheese. This Salt Spring Island cheese, basil goat cheese. Holy fucking shit, there is nothing like it in the goddamn world. If you can get your hands on this, you need to. If you're ever on Salt Spring, you can go into the fucking goat factory. It's not a goat factory, it's a farm. That's the word I was looking for. You can go in there, you can try all of the cheeses. You have to do it. It's so worth it. But if you go, you have to get the basil cheese, and you can also find it off Salt Spring Island in some grocery stores like this place. Then we grabbed some locally made sausage, which my partner picked out for the pierogies because I don't really like meat or know anything about it. We don't know why this is green. I don't know why it's green. Maybe my partner does. Just know that that wasn't my choice. And then finally, nobody eats cheese like a fucking lactose intolerant freak. We got this hot Jill cheese. Again, if you are on Vancouver Island, you need to find the Little Qualcomm Cheeseworks hot Jill cheese. It is so fucking good. Spicy to the perfect degree. You cannot make a better grilled cheese sandwich than one that you make with this cheese. Absolutely unrivaled. Just this on a plain cracker. So much flavor. You can also go to this place if for some fucking reason you're in Qualicum Beach. You can go and you can pet their little baby cows. So that was our haul. After that, I ate a tofu dessert. I don't know if y'all eat these. It's like a little silky, sweet mango. I got the mango flavored tofu. Delicious, cold, on a hot summer day. Beautiful. Then I had some of that cheese. By the way, I did not eat the entire thing of cheese. We already had a basil salt spring cheese in our fridge. But also, if I had eaten the whole thing, that wouldn't be shocking. You can do that. I read for a while on the deck, but I have this weird neck injury that was triggered by literally just sitting at a picnic with my friends. So I can't really ride my bike for as long as I did yesterday. It kind of exacerbated it. Couldn't get my neck comfortable outside, so I came and lied in bed. I was also fucking exhausted, so exhausted. It took me just about 2 hours to read 70 pages, but I did it, and I finished Vanishing World. And this is where the review would go if I had organized this correctly. Then my partner made some fresh lemonade and I sat on the couch working for a little bit. I needed to make an announcement for the new book club pick. We voted on it. Jellyfish Have No Ears by Adele Rosenfeld is our new August pick. I was trying to make a cute little announcement, and then at one point I decided I was too exhausted to make it look good, and I just kind of gave up. I didn't give up. I settled. Then I lied on the couch for a while and I started reading Where I End by Sophie White. I would like to say my partner set up this shot with the camera for me because I didn't want to get up, and I don't want to be blamed for how it looks, okay? Why is the couch tag out? It's out because we're selling our furniture because we're moving, but like, why is that in frame? What? Why'd you put that in the frame? Now, Where I End is not one of my overdue library books, but it is a book that I really wanted to read. I wanted something dark and some horror. I feel like it's been a while since I read a horror book, and I've seen people say this is like a one-sitting read. That is exactly what I was looking for. For dinner, we had burgers with guacamole and then all the fixings. The guacamole was delicious, but it wasn't right for the potato burger that I had. I think it's better with tzatziki, which is how I usually have it. And then I had a slice of cheesecake, which my roommate bought to celebrate me hitting 50K, which was really cute and unnecessary. After that, I was wiped. I don't think I did anything else. And then we did the mini and the dailies and the bracket city, which is my favorite one, and the bandle, which I think we failed at. And then we sat there and we talked for a little while, and then I had a bath to try to fix up my neck, and then I fell asleep in bed wrapped in my towel and had to be woken up and forced to dress. And then this morning I woke up, I want to say it was like 8. I let myself sleep in a little bit later than I wanted to. I had the saddest looking piece of lemon loaf ever to exist for breakfast. I don't know why it was broken into so many pieces, and a cup of Pacific Sun tea, which is this loose leaf tea that we get from a local tea shop. It's like orange blossom, rose, vanilla, black tea. It is so good. Today is a work day, or at least a work morning, so that's what I've been doing since about 9 a.m. Typing up some notes for these books, for the book club, trying to come up with some fucking discussion questions for this goddamn piece of shit. Midway through working, my partner surprised me with a Dutch baby with the cardamom cooked apples on top. It was delightful, and it has fueled me for the day. Today, I'm filming this. I'm about to finish filming this, and then I'm going to keep taking notes on the book club discussions for this book. I also literally need to pack. This is like not optional. I have to pack something. It's unbelievable that we are moving on Sunday and we haven't done anything. So I think right now I'm gonna first change out of the shirt I'm wearing because I'm so sweaty after sitting in this room recording for almost an hour. I'm gonna die. Then I think I'm gonna go purge underneath the bathroom sink where we've just kind of thrown bottles for the past 4 years of living here. Then I'm gonna sit out on the deck and read for a little bit. That is my plan. I think that's everything. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye. Hello, I'm back here for a final update. After I talked to you last, I started on the most manageable packing task that I could possibly think of, which was testing out all of the markers that I've accumulated over the past probably like 10 years to throw away the ones that have dried out, which was, I think, over half of them. Then my partner got home, so I made us some lunch. I have always been under the impression that this meal is something that our friend created, but I looked it up and that's not true. Other people do eat this. If you have never eaten this, it's going to sound rancid to you like it did to me when I first heard about it, but you have to just trust me, it actually is good. It's a tuna quesadilla, okay? It is fish and cheese, but it's tuna mixed with a little bit of mayo, some salsa, some red onion, some sun-dried tomatoes. Put it in a tortilla, put some cheese on it, fry it up. I promise you, if you also eat it with salsa, it will be delicious. We use specifically the Western Family canned salsa. If you haven't got onto the canned salsa train, you need to know it is so much better than the jarred shit. Jarred salsa has this very specific taste, almost like a bitterness that canned salsa just does not have. So much so that I used to think like for my whole life that I didn't like pre-made salsa, and then we started eating the canned shit, and it literally shook a core belief I had about myself. Once we finished eating, I took my book out to the deck and I read a little bit more, and then I kind of started getting bored of that because, as you've seen, I spend a lot of time reading on the deck. And also my neighbor beside us, sometimes he coughs really, really wetly and it drives me fucking crazy. And then I can't put my headphones on because it's so hot, I get sweaty, and I don't want my headphones to get sweaty. So I took my picnic blanket and the book down to the park and I sat and I read there, and it was beautiful. I sat under the apple trees. The sun was shining on me, but it wasn't as incredibly hot and exposed as the deck. And I just like, I was peaceful. Once I finished up, I took some notes on what I had just read, and then I headed home where we made those pierogies for dinner from the insane grocery store. And that sausage that I was so suspicious of was delicious. It was great. I knew it was going to be really good in some hash, which is good because we have a lot more of it. Over the rest of the night, I read like maybe 12 pages here and there in little spurts. My neck was really bothering me, and I just couldn't read being so uncomfortable, and I was a little bit grumpy about it. I had a bath, and then my partner massaged me a little bit. My mother-in-law is a registered massage therapist, which if you're ever like on the hunt for a new person to date, find someone who is or whose mom is an RMT. It is such a bonus in a relationship to have someone who can massage your sore muscles. After my partner worked on me a little bit, I got into bed to read at 10:30. I was so exhausted that I fell asleep. I'm not even joking. 3 minutes later. This video goes for over an hour until the camera dies. Most of it is black after my partner came into the room and shut off the light. There's like 40 minutes of just a black screen that I recorded because I fell asleep instantly. So that night I slept for over 9 hours, woke up the next morning at 7:45. I put in some laundry because I needed to wash the shorts that I wear every single day. I have one pair of shorts and I love them, and I can't get another pair because I'll never want to wear them. So it's just me and the one pair of shorts. So I had to wear pants that morning, and it was horrible. I considered for a long time going down to a cafe, surprising my partner with a little treat for breakfast, but then I kind of decided that I wanted to read because it was really hard for me to stop reading Where I End by Sophie White. Once you start reading that book, you are so sucked into the world. It is difficult to make choices other than reading that book. So instead, I made myself some pesto avocado toast, and I ate that. And then I sat out on the deck to read more. Which, by the way, if you don't have your hands on a zero gravity chair, I know I'm like 15 years behind this invention, but they are so worth it. They're so good. In my mind, I thought back to when my parents got a zero gravity chair when they were like first invented. And I was like, oh, this is a luxury. Like these cost $300 to $500. Never question that perception. They don't. They really don't. You can probably get one for like $50, and it is the best choice I've ever made, other than the e-bike. That's number one. Zero gravity chair, number 2 spot of choices in my life. My partner woke up and came out to talk to me, and I asked, if I were to go get peaches, would you make another sourdough peach cobbler? And the answer was yes, which solidified my plan for the morning. After a while, I finally managed to pull myself away from the book, and then I headed out to go to Root Cellar, which is like a kind of fancy local grocery store. They have a lot of fruit. Everything in there is overpriced except the produce, and I was mostly going for produce. Actually, mostly I was going because I really, really enjoyed the bike ride to get to Root Cellar. It's again along that trail, the Galloping Goose. You get this beautiful breeze. You go past Swan Lake when you go this way. It's just like absolutely gorgeous. The dappled sunlight, everything about it is perfect until you get to Mackenzie, and then you feel like every car on the road wants to kill you. It's very flat for the whole ride, and I just feel so incredibly relaxed. I take it so slow, and I just like enjoy the moment. Biking for me is sort of similar to getting a tattoo in the sense that like when you get a tattoo, the only thing that you can be doing is getting a tattoo. Like it clears my mind. I enjoy the pain of it because it's like meditative almost, and I feel very similarly with biking. It slows my brain down in a very similar way until I have to ride on a road like Mackenzie. Even though that is a protected bike lane, every car is going so fast and they are going so close to you, it is no longer calming to ride. So I arrived, I grabbed a bag of the Okanagan cherries, and let me tell you, that was the best bag of cherries that we have had all summer. Holy shit, they were so big and ripe and juicy. Local produce is unlike anything else. I fucking love cherry season. Then I got the peaches for the sourdough cobbler that my partner promised me would be made, except I got confused and I almost brought home 6 nectarines. Thank God I caught that and I picked up the peaches instead. I was also sent to get 2 lemons, I think for lemon poppy seed sourdough scones that my partner is planning on making. If you can't tell, my partner is really enjoying baking right now, and also my mom recently gifted us part of her starter. So that's what's going on with the whole sourdough situation. But the lemons were 4 for $5, so I thought I might as well just get the 4, and then we'll make lemonade or something with the rest of it. I then went to the reduced price produce section, and I saw a carton of raspberries that was so incredibly overripe, but also $2.99, which is really fucking cheap for raspberries. So I grabbed those thinking I'll maybe bake with them. They got so smushed in the bag. The only thing that it's now just like one kind of like congealed lump of raspberry. There's no longer individual raspberries in there, so I think that's probably just gonna turn into raspberry lemonade. And then I got those sodas that I was talking about way earlier in the video, and they were so fucking good. And the last thing I was there for was mozzarella for the pizza that we were planning on making that night. So certain I would be able to get mozzarella at a grocery store. I can get mozzarella when I go get peaches. Absolutely not. They had every fancy cheese you could possibly think of, but no just like fresh mozzarella. All they had was the tiniest little ball of buffalo mozzarella, half the size of what we would normally use making pizza, and $10. So I was like, you know what? I'm calm, cool, and collected. It's a nice day. I'm just going to go to the other, more normal grocery store down the street and get mozzarella from there. I check both cheese sections at this grocery store. No mozzarella. I mean, they have like the shitty block kind, but they don't have the pizza kind. What they do have is a fucking carton of buffalo mozzarella, the exact same one, this time for $12. But I was so intent on making pizza last night because we're not sure if we can use our pizza oven at our new place. It's like a fully pellet fired pizza oven, but kind of a wood fired pizza oven. It creates quite a bit of smoke. I have my doubts that we're going to be able to use it, so we needed one last hurrah with the pizza oven. So I grabbed some bocconcinis, even though that's not the right cheese, and I asked my roommate if he could pick up some mozzarella on the way home. He never answered, so I got the cheese just in case. I then, very irresponsibly, because I left all my food in the bike basket outside, dipped really quickly into the thrift store across the street from this grocery store, because I found some really good books in there before. It's just one shelf of books, but I found something every time I go in, and they're like $2, and I could not help myself. Went in, got a copy of Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood, which I've seen kicking around. I'm interested in reading. Think it was shortlisted for the Booker, maybe? This was in almost perfect condition, $1.95. Also saw Geek Love by Catherine Dunn in there, which kind of hurt my heart in a way because that's a book that I looked for in the wild for about 2 years. It's not at my library. It has not been in any local bookstores. If I had found that used just like randomly one day, I would have freaked the fuck out. That was so high on my list of books to buy for so long. I already had bought it new, so I left it there for somebody else to find. And then I headed home, except I didn't, because I wanted to read by the lake for a little bit. Which, why did I do that second? Why did I buy cheese and then think, oh, I'm going to sit in the hot, hot sun for a while? I don't know. So I only stayed for about 15 minutes. At first, I sat under this gorgeous weeping willow tree that's in my top 3 trees in this area. And then I got really self-conscious because I thought of that guy from Twilight, and he's sitting in the tree so that the paparazzi will take photos of him looking intellectual. And then I thought of You're Not a Vibe Bro, and I got so shy that I had to get out of the tree and go somewhere else. So instead, I sat at this bench, and it was amazing. It was incredible. I could have stayed there forever, but I had the fucking cheese in my bike basket. I managed to rip myself away from the book, which I promise I'm going to give you a review of any second now. I just don't want to be all over the place. And then I biked home, and I will miss the biking trails near this place, though in reality I have an e-bike. I can get to these trails from the new house, even though they're quite a bit farther away. Like, I can really get anywhere in the greater Victoria area on my bike. I got home, I ate a bunch of cherries, I drank the cream soda, and then I sat, as you might have guessed, on the deck. You have seen how frequently I sit on this deck and read, and the way I sit with my knees up has meant that over the course of the summer, the leg hairs on my knees have been bleached bright white, but only on my knees. Here I finally finished Where I End, which since I started I had not been able to stop thinking about, and I'm finally going to give you my summary and review of right now. Where I End follows Elin, a 19-year-old living on an island off the coast of Ireland. She is living a very, very, very confined life within her family home, and also an isolated life on this island. She lives with her grandmother and her mother, who her and her grandmother almost exclusively call it and the bed thing. Her mother has been profoundly disabled by some event that Elin is not privy to that happened around the time of her birth. She needs constant 24/7 care and is essentially comatose. Her mother doesn't move, speak, or open her eyes, but they often find her in the mornings out of her bed. They never see her move, but they find her in the hallway, in the kitchen, even outside of the house sometimes. having presumably crawled there. They also find scratches gouged into the wood of the house. And they know this is her because at this point, after 19 years of this, her fingers have worn down. She has no fingernails. They all stop just after the knuckle, and on one of her fingers, the bone is exposed. Taking care of her is hard labor, both physically and emotionally. And in the beginning, particularly with this very creepy description of her escaping bed somehow in the middle of the night unseen and clawing at the walls and the floors, and with the language that they use to describe her and how it frames her, it is very easy to just buy into the idea of the mother as monstrous. I think I personally also read a lot of books where that is the case, which primed me to take Elend's perception as truth, but you very quickly are forced to question who is the real monster here. It isn't as if the mother seems to have the capacity to intentionally harm them, but you can still understand Elend's loathing towards her mother because of this burden of care that has been placed on her for her entire life. But that isn't her mother's fault. It's her horrible grandmother's fault. And it's this horrible grandmother who has really nurtured the idea that Elend's mother is who's to blame for this situation. And Elend finds it very easy to accept this as the truth because she doesn't know what has happened to put her mother in this state, and her grandmother does, and is always alluding to the fact that it is her mother's fault, and that it has resulted out of a choice that her mother made. Part of the reason that Elend has only ever known life in her house is because of the very tiny insular community that it's located in, which is filled with extremely paranoid, hostile, and superstitious people who have this almost innate sense of distrust towards outsiders, which they see Elend as. Her grandmother and her father grew up here, but her mother didn't, and the islanders see her not just as a curse, but as a plague on their community. They won't look at her, they won't get near her, they spit at her feet. And even if there was someone on the island who would let her get close, her grandmother wouldn't allow that, because no one knows that her mother is alive in the house. All of the islanders think that she's dead. Her grandmother also supports Elend's mothering because she herself is a hostile, paranoid, superstitious islander. And though she hides it a little bit better than everyone else, Elend knew as a child when she would go to touch her grandmother that she was stiffening for the same reason that everyone else on the island spits at her feet. The island has some really strange customs, and it also seems generations of incest. There's a lot of referencing to the evil of the sea, how no one here learns to swim because they all think of the sea as a creature that will take them away, but they also are forced to work on the sea, and this causes a lot of drownings every year. There's also talk, but never like clarity in the beginning here, about unusual traditions with the cemetery and how they bury their dead. Through conversations overheard between Elend's grandmother and her father, who lives on the mainland and can only bear to visit once a week, we learn that what happened to her mother had something to do with the ocean, and also something that seems to be genetic, because Elend had been taken to a doctor's appointment which they described as preemptive, something she didn't understand at the time. Elend is a rightfully angry young woman. A lot of her anger is directed towards her grandmother, but she doesn't actually understand the full extent of that at the beginning of the book, and most of her ire is turned towards her mother, whose needs rule the ins and outs of her days. There's a lot of monotonous detail of every step that she takes to hoist her mother out of bed, to undress her, to get her into the bath, to bathe her, to get her onto the toilet, but this is a monotony that is necessary. It going on for pages and pages can really make you feel how stuck she is, how with this kind of caretaking, the tasks are never ending, and every moment that she takes a break or a moment for herself, she's punished for it, because the next task she needs to do becomes more and more urgent. It's completely suffocating. And to get out of this, Elend swims. She's the only person on the island who goes into the ocean, and it's just another reason that the islanders can point at her and think of her as so different from themselves. She swims to empty her head and to feel like she isn't in her body, and one day when she's out swimming, she hears a baby crying, and she finds an almost newborn baby lying on the beach alone. She's wondering what to do when a woman walks out of the ocean towards her, and she immediately scuttles backwards because she knows the punishment that the islanders would inflict on her if they found her within this close proximity to one of their children, the accusations that they would throw at her. But this woman isn't an islander. This is Rachel. She's an artist who's been brought here for a residency of some sort as the island tries to revamp their museum, and she's staying here for a month to create an exhibit that will be shown when the museum opens again. And this brief interaction that she has with Elend is full of firsts for this woman who has only ever known isolation and exile. Elend is slapped in the face with this completely new way of being treated by others, just a general sense of friendliness that she has never experienced in her life. She's also incredibly attracted to Rachel's body, which is full and very different from the only other body that she's familiar with outside of her own, which is her mother's emaciated one. While they talk, Elin is practicing smiling and not being off-putting. She's shocked by the sound of her own name, something that she hasn't heard aloud in like 10 years. Rachel definitely senses a sadness in Elin, but she doesn't outright just start pitying her. Instead, she invites her over the next day to help move a table. And in the next 24 hours before they meet again, Elin becomes utterly obsessed with Rachel, what she describes as acutely disturbed by her. Rachel is all that she can think about. She is truly Elin's only branch and first branch connecting her to humanity. And it becomes very dark, and you know that Elin would do anything to keep this connection intact. She helps Rachel move the table the next day, and she does everything in her power to warm Rachel to her and to make Rachel want to keep Elin around. All the while in her head, she's becoming increasingly jealous of how much attention this newborn baby sucks from her. She hides it very well, but she is constantly imagining the wet crunch of this baby's head against the floor. Rachel says goodbye, but Elin lingers in the dark hallway, watching Rachel breastfeed her son, and she watches as Rachel falls asleep. She creeps back into the room, and she lowers Rachel's shirt to expose her other breast, and she watches as the milk beads from her nipple, and then she very gently leans forward and laps up the fucking milk. Holy shit. My jaw absolutely dropped. This scene is so tense. Like, first of all, girl, stop. Holy shit, stop. But also, like, the tension of whether or not Rachel is going to wake up here is insane. This is my favorite kind of tension that a story can have, where someone is very weird and dark on the inside and very isolated, and then their new budding connection to another person is the only thing keeping them sane. But they can't shove down the darkness, and it's this constant battle between acting out in ways that would obviously scare this person off, and then doing anything in their power to keep the person in their lives. Wow. Does it make me feel like I'm gonna fucking throw up. Elin slips out back to her home and starts thinking more about her mother, having this mother-child relationship modeled in front of her for the first time in her life. She only ever thinks about her mom as a mother in an almost ironic way. Like, she almost exclusively refers to her as the bed thing, and then when she calls her my mother, it's kind of in a way of like, isn't it ridiculous that anyone could ever consider this thing to be a mother? She wants to know if her mom breastfed her, but her grandmother won't answer that. So the next time she's alone with her mother, she exposes her mom's breast and sucks on it. And it's this very, very uncomfortable power thing in the moment as well. Afterwards, she regrets her actions because her mother is basically an object to her that is disgusting. And to get her mom out of her mouth, she douses herself in boiling water and covers the inside and outside of her mouth in blisters. Every night following this, she spies on Rachel. She sees the exhaustion of brand new single motherhood and becomes more and more focused on the baby as the source of all of Rachel's issues, which, wow, if that isn't fucking tense. One night, Rachel turns out the lights in the house when Elin isn't expecting it, and all of a sudden, the reflection of the room is no longer in the sliding glass door, and she is exposed on the outside, and her and Rachel make eye contact. Rachel doesn't know it's her, and she runs away, but she knows that Rachel is going to need some comfort, and thinks she's probably going to be at the beach tomorrow morning. And when Elin goes, Rachel is there. And Elin is very calculated in her manipulation to make Rachel believe that she needs Elin around. She convinces her that it was the island boys that have been stalking her, that they don't like outsiders, and that also she needs some rest. And so Elin says, I'll come help you at night. I'll help with the baby and I'll keep an eye out. And Rachel agrees. So Elin starts staying with Rachel every night. And it does help. The baby gets less colicky, Rachel can get some rest, and she can also work on her art more. When she mentions to Elin that she's no longer going to need her to come around all the time pretty soon, Elin starts thinking up a plan of how she can make sure that Rachel still needs her. And her choice, of course, is to poison the baby. When Rachel isn't around, she starts pouring ocean water into his mouth, and she manages to get the dosage just right so that he's always on the edge of being quite sick, which keeps Rachel on the edge as well and keeps her needing Elin. I mean, you think of course this is what Elin would do. All she knows of being useful is being a caretaker. And in her home life, that's still what she is. Over the years with her mother, she has found these carvings in the floor. Usually it's just scratches, but every once in a while she finds a letter. And she's been keeping track of them in a notebook because the first time she found a letter, it was a P. And she just kept going over it again and again and convincing herself that she hadn't actually seen the P. So now she takes rubbings of them. But they had never had any sense or any parsable intention until now when she finds an arrow. She scrubs out the arrow, but then she looks closer on the walls and she finds scratched very lightly a whole series of arrows that leads her in this little maze to the window, which has been bricked up. But between the stones, she finds a folded letter. The letter was written by her father to her mother, begging her to come back to them, to speak or to look at them. But the important part is on the back, which has a whole bunch of scribbled indentations. It's not like pen or pencil. It's written presumably from the bone that is sticking out of her mother's finger. It is words, and it is words with meaning and phrases with meaning, and this is the first time that Elin has understood her mother to actually be in there, to have thought and intention, qualities that she has never known her mom to possess. There isn't all that much information that she gets out of this note. It's really just telling us that her mother is still there, that there is a human being inside of this body. But with Rachel around, Elin is starting to care a lot less about her mother and all of the secrets that have been kept from her. She has a new, tight, singular focus, and her family is really falling to the background. Where she once used to be so cautious about not getting caught with Rachel, she's now brashly careless. One night, something comes over her, and she takes a rope from the town's oft mentioned but never fully explained non-traditional cemetery, and she hangs it on Rachel's doorknob. The next day she wakes with a start, shocked at having done this, and she goes back to Rachel's place and she finds her at the table sketching this rope. And she brings out this anger that she really feels towards herself for messing with the rope. She directs it at Rachel and she says, "Why would you touch that? Why would you take that from the graveyard?" And she manages to convince Rachel that she is so exhausted and tired that she was the one that took it, that it wouldn't have been the island boys, that these ropes carry so much weight, no one ever would have messed with them. She makes it out to be a very serious offense. When she gets home that morning, she finds her grandmother not at work, having caught her out when she's supposed to be taking care of her mother. Her grandmother knows that she's been at Rachel's place because no one else on the island would host her, and she tells her, "You can't be around the baby. It's not safe." She says, "What's wrong with your mother is also wrong with you. We thought we could fend it off by keeping the information from you, but it's obviously starting to rear its ugly head." This is the day of the week that her father visits, and the adults decide that it's time to tell Elin the truth that they've been keeping from her entire life. Her father sits her down and he tells her that she had a twin sister that died when they were 6 weeks old. He explains that her mother had a really serious case of postpartum depression and psychosis, and that one day she took the two babies down to the beach and she laid them in the surf and then sat farther back. And he came and he found them and he watched the babies get washed away into the ocean, and he could only grab one. So Elin was saved, but her sister died. And ever since that moment, her mother has been in this state, which is so unsettling that nothing physically happened to her. After she killed her daughter, she was just like this. They told the town that the mother and the child both died, and then they kept her hidden in this house. And the town saw Elin as responsible for the other baby and for her mother's death, and blamed her, and that's why they see her as such a curse. As her dad is telling her this story that she's waited her entire life to hear, she is thinking about how bored she is by him, how she just wants to get back to Rachel. Her dad gives her a letter that her mom had written a little after her and her sister were born, which hauntingly details her experience with pregnancy, birth, and the aftermath. It's not necessarily true to how a letter would sound. It prioritizes being haunting and being impactful, but the rest of the book is so well written that I was able to forgive that. Elin doesn't care about this letter. All of the information that she's been waiting for, she's so indifferent towards. She has more on her mind, which is the museum's opening the next day. Also being Rachel's last day on the island. She needs to figure out how to get Rachel to take her away with her. So that morning, she's walking around the museum flaunting her new family. She's carrying around the baby who she has been poisoning, and also whose soft spot on the top of his head she has been pressing into as a little treat, and she describes it as being so pronounced of a divot it could now hold water, which is like Elin then sees her grandmother talking to Rachel, clearly warning her about Elin. And Rachel runs over to her, and Elin thinks she's here to save her baby from me, the monster. But what Rachel really does is embrace her in a hug and tell her, "Your grandmother is a horrible person." And because of what her grandmother has said, Elin no longer has to manipulate Rachel into taking her off the island. Rachel says, "You can't stay here with her, come with me." And this is so complex because you at the same time want this for her and you don't want this for her. She is hurting this baby. Her need to keep Rachel in her life is so strong that she would do anything. She would harm anyone, and it's obviously dangerous for her to be with them. But then at the same time, you empathize with Elin enough, even through all of her evil actions and her manipulation and her darkness. You want her to escape this home life. That night, she takes the grave rope that she had hung on Rachel's doorknob and she ties it around her mother. The graveyard situation we learn, which I think we kind of knew throughout the book, is that they used to hang their dead bodies off the back cliffs of the island so that they would slowly get kind of like battered away. You can't dig more than a foot down into this soil because it just hits rock. And you also can't throw your bodies into the ocean because they always turn back up on shore. So they would hang them up and just kind of let them decompose there. So Elin is taking her mother here, both to punish her and to put her out of her misery. As she's very slowly and laboriously dragging her over to the cliffs, she stops and she says, "Why don't you just get up and walk?" And her mom fucking does it. Oh my god, this shocked me. This stressed me the fuck out. This woman, who you have never seen move once in this entire book, and you know that she hasn't, over the last 19 years, ever been seen moving, gets up and walks. She listens to this command. She walks over to the cliff edge. Elin tells her, "You can just jump if you want." And she grins at Elin and shakes her head no. So Elin slowly lowers her over the edge, and she leaves her there to slowly die. And then she heads back home, where she'll only stay for a few more hours before she leaves the next morning with Rachel. And that's the end of the book. I thought this book was great. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. I was holding my breath the entire time I was reading it. There were multiple points in here where I physically gasped. The first half is like If We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson wasn't extremely dense and wordy. And the second half is like this pure, unbridled obsession and this very dark, disturbing yearning. Sophie White did a fantastic job really getting into the head of this character and of this idea of like, this is all I've ever known. There were so many moments in her interactions with Rachel that were like things I would never think about, but were both uncomfortable and thrilling in how unfamiliar they were to her. Just little things like the way that Rachel would speak to her in little tiny ways that you would never consider, but Sophie White just knows that's not something my character has experienced. And it really speaks to the skill of the characterization and development in this book, that through all of the ever-growing darkness, disturbing behaviors, and manipulation from Elin, the actual physical harm that she causes to others, there is still a part of you that wants the best for her. The writing was beautiful and dark, which are two notes that I think are really hard to hit without feeling like you're trying too hard or you're being too melodramatic. The descriptions were visceral and embodied. I winced at multiple points reading this book. It's violent in an almost passive kind of way, and it really draws you into this claustrophobic world. Like I said, I had a very hard time putting this down and getting it out of my brain when I wasn't reading it. I loved how the island itself was this malevolent, haunted thing, how the fear that permeates through everyone who visits this island in different ways seemed connected to the land itself. In that sense, it was very atmospheric in a really, really uncomfortable way. I think uncomfortable is the best word to describe how I felt throughout reading this entire book, but it was uncomfortable in a way that I really enjoyed. Very, very effective, disturbing, horrific writing. There is something that I want to complain about with this book, and that's not anything to do with the book itself. It's the author's note, which thank God I read after I finished the book, even though it's at the beginning. I'm always afraid of things spoiling it, so I just want to read the book and then all the other extra bits afterwards. If I had read this first, I think I would have started the book already with a bad taste in my mouth, so I'm glad that I did it second and was able to fully enjoy the book. This author's note is detailing like Sophie White's experience of writing the book and where it came from. And she says, "Before he died, my father was a vegetable for 3 years. I'm sorry for the cruel language, but sometimes I think euphemisms do a disservice to experiences. In this case, employing something gentler would downplay what he suffered and what we suffered as his family living through his unliving." I understand what she's saying here, but I disagree with it entirely and I hate it. First of all, vegetable, the cruel language that you're using, is itself a euphemism. Like, hello? I know that for her, saying the most offensive thing here is reflecting her very horrible experience with this. But that doesn't mean that it's okay, and I hate her attempt to justify it here. I complained about this a little bit with someone else in the book club, Bree, who has also read this book, and Bree said that it almost feels like she's acting like she's making a noble decision to call her father a vegetable, to use that language. It's like almost smug and irritating. I just hated it. I'm so happy that I read that afterwards, because, ew. What a gross thing to say. I don't know. I just think it's like a really stupid and terrible justification. You can use that language among your family who have also experienced it. I don't think that you need to be putting it into your book like that. Hated that. Regardless, where I end is a book that I am not going to be able to stop thinking about. I finished this and I just sat there just thinking about it and feeling nauseous for a little bit. Then my roommate came home. He did pick up mozzarella and he also picked up lemons, which I had forgotten to take off the grocery list. So we have 6 lemons. What are we going to do with 6 lemons? I spent the rest of the afternoon and evening yesterday packing because we are moving in literally less than 48 hours. I have packed 1 box. What the fuck am I doing? Why am I making a vlog right now? This will be the last time that you will see this bedroom. I mean, obviously my next bedroom is going to be set up in a very similar way to this, but this will be a little different next time you see me. That's bonkers. So I'm cutting the vlog off here. Actually, before that, I'm going to tell you about the pizza we made last night. Don't let me forget. We have a little pizza oven, okay? It's luxurious. My mom got it for us for Christmas because she wants my dad to buy her one, and it hasn't worked yet. So we made our little wood-fired pizzas. We had the little curly pepperonis. We got our fresh basil plant, sprinkling that on there. We had an heirloom tomato that I got at Root Cellar that I forgot to tell you about. Homemade sauce, homemade dough, delicious cheese into the oven. God, it was incredible. After pizza, I packed a little more and then I typed up more notes and I did some more work on figuring out discussion questions for the fucking horrible book club book that we're reading this month that I cannot post a mid-month video about because we still don't have Wi-Fi. Did I ever say that? The Wi-Fi guy came and he said, there's nothing I can do. Sorry, I don't really know what's wrong. Sorry about that, y'all. I still don't have Wi-Fi. It's now Friday. It's been 5 days. This would mean nothing if I wasn't moving in 2 days, because I could just go to a cafe and upload the Patreon video there. But I have to pack. I have to fucking pack. So I'm cutting this off. Thank you for coming along with me on this little journey of just my everyday life. I have a great life. Thank you for being here and allowing me to have this absolutely wonderful life. I will see you next time when I'm living in a new house. Goodbye.